Because what you're essentially saying is that I'm wrong to assume that the police and crime minister is there to improve policing and reduce crime.
You are 100% wrong to be thinking that. And it was created to beat people like me and you with, because we're straight, white, pale males. They just seem to constantly be making the wrong choices. And that's because, as this conversation started, their job isn't what we think their job is anymore now.
Nick Buckley, MBE, I should say, an author. Your book's beginning to fly off the shelves, I'm told now.
Yeah, it's selling very well. Anglophobia, a price worth paying to be English, available on Amazon. That's the only plug I'll do today.
Well, tell us again, just you can do a little bit more. Tell us again, because it's very relevant to what we're discussing. Tell us again, what is the theme of that book? What's it about?
The book explains why we're in the mess we're in now. Why are white people hated? Why is Western culture hated? Why we're hated by foreigners and the children of foreigners? Why is there self-hate within our communities and our nations? And it goes into all of that and attempts to explain why we're in this mess. Because we can't solve a problem until we understand why we have the problem and what the problem exactly is. And the book does that.
I know it's a spoiler alert coming up now, but in a sentence or two, what is the cause?
Two causes. The first cause is why foreigners and children of migrants hate us, and that's jealousy and envy. So when you look at your ancestors and the best thing they ever built was mud huts, and you look at the English, the British, Western civilization, of course you feel jealousy and envy because your ancestors let you down. That's just a fact. And the self-hate basically comes from ideology and poor mental health. And the more poor mental health we've got in our country, the more we have people hating themselves, hating society, hating the country, because they're looking for someone to blame for the pain they're suffering, and it's easy to externalize that and blame society for letting them down, and it's a way of getting rid of some of the pain.
How much is the book, by the way?
I think it's 12 quid, available only on Amazon. It's cheap if you get the ebook, but all my other books are available on Amazon, and they've all been reduced in price now because I always reduce them when a new book comes out.
£12. So if you sell 1 million books, you can take me out for lunch, Nick.
If I sell £1 million, I'll buy your studio.
Okay, done. Million books, yeah. Okay, that's a done deal. In front of the world, watching this live. Woohoo! That's a good result. We can stop the show now. I'll see you on the Costa Brava then.
Yeah.
Returning to where we would be migrants. Returning to the migrant crisis in this country then. You may have, I don't know if you've seen this person, but that is the Crime and Policing Minister, Diana Johnson, who really provoked me this morning on the mainstream media. She was on the taxpayer-sponsored British Broadcasting Corporation this morning, and she was so mealy-mouthed, it made me sick. It made me pointlessly shout out loud at the television. What was she saying? Well, she was saying that she basically agreed with spies in the form of facial recognition cameras to keep an eye on the British, but she wouldn't confirm, she wouldn't, as far as I could tell, even agree with the idea of automatically indicating the asylum status of crime suspects. And it seemed to absolutely underline with a big red pen the fact that we have two-tier policing, where ideologically her government, the Labour government, is protecting migrants and punishing the Brits. What's your view on this, Nick?
We need to understand where she's coming from. And once we understand that, then what she says and what she does then makes sense. Now, she's called the Crime Minister. Automatically, we think her job is about reducing crime. That's not her job. Her job is to ensure certain crimes aren't committed. And if crimes are committed, it can't be blamed on the government. Now, this government and the last government are extremely worried about the balkanization of our country and urban violence. And we're beginning to see the beginnings of that now over the last few months with the migrant hotel demonstrations, Ballymena, Southport. So everything they're trying to do now is about trying to keep a lid on this. So they're trying to keep a lid on white British people. The calling us racist, fascist, Nazis doesn't work anymore now. So now they're looking at facial recognition cameras. But on the flip side, the Labour government doesn't want to lose any more ethnic minority votes. So therefore, they're having to reach out and say, but we're still ethnic minority friendly. We're not going to treat illegal immigrants as illegal immigrants. So that they're trying to spin so many plates, always looking towards the next election. And that's why when we hear them speak, we think they're incompetent. We think they're idiots. They're not. They're just not doing the job we think their job is to do.
Well, she was utterly useless on the BBC. This is a still from Sky, but utterly useless from the BBC on the BBC because, and unfortunately, the rather lame interviewer didn't really push her on it that hard, but said, "Well, why aren't you giving the identity?" Oh, well, that's not really our policy. He should have gone right to town on it. He did raise the case of perhaps the most blatant case of double standards I've seen recently. And I'll show something about that in a minute. But basically, it seemed to me that he was completely happy to let her off the hook. That's an interesting take that you have there, because what you're essentially saying is that I'm wrong to assume that the police and crime minister is there to improve policing and reduce crime.
You are 100% wrong to be thinking that. And this has been going on for decades. I spent decades working with the police, based in police stations, training police officers as well. I know I've sat in those senior meetings where it's not about how do we address these crime problems. The conversations were about how do we make our stats look better? How do we ensure that we're tackling LGBTCA or concerns? What are we going to do about the Muslim community? How do we make them feel? And these were senior police meetings. It was never about how we're going to stop those burglaries, how are we going to stop those rapes or the antisocial behaviour. And if we were looking at those problems because stats went too high, it was never about tackling the individuals. It was always, and I have to admit, I was also, not only did I sit in those meetings, I contributed to this type of policing as well at the time. How do we get the stats down? Let's not make the community safer. How do we make the community just look a little bit safer with our stats? And we wasted so much time and energy and money on fake policing, and it's got so much worse over the last 2 decades.
A lot of people I know are absolutely disgusted by the antics of the police during Pride Month in London, where the police essentially get involved in the gay pride demonstration. Now, I think we need to remember that the gay community represents, you can argue the percentage, but around 1.5% of the population. Some people say it's a bit more. And yet, for some weird, twisted reason, 1 in 8 Labour members of Parliament claims to be gay or something like that. That's hardly representative of the population, but it might be a clue as to why they have a disproportionately large amount of attention there. I'm not homophobic. I mean, I actually do a podcast or a show with a gay friend of mine, but it's just the way that sexual orientation has been elevated to this uncomfortable and distasteful level where it's the most important thing. Sexism. You go on.
I was going to say, and that's because it's become political. It's not the gay community anymore now. It's the LGBTQ plus community. And that has become a political arm of the far left. And it was created to beat people like me and you with, because we're straight, white, pale males. And going back to the podcast you do with your gay friend, don't ever explain yourself. Don't ever say, but I'm not homophobic because I haven't. We need to stop doing that. We need to stop saying I'm not racist, because I'll tell you what, I treat everybody as if they're not racist, homophobic, Nazis, until they prove me wrong. I take everybody at face value. But the LGBT community isn't the gay community. The LGBTQ community, and now pedos, perverts, and narcissists. There may be some nice gay people in that community who think it's still a decent community, but it's not a decent community. It's pedos, perverts, and narcissists. the LGBTQ plus community.
There's a whole conversation to be had about that in the future. And every time we discover another paedophile was in the BBC, lessons will be learned. Lessons will be learned. Timmy Savile never prosecuted.
Did you see the article yesterday about the Met Police volunteer, the Met Police trans volunteer in court at the moment for raping children? It's every day someone who works for the police or a police. Again, yesterday, a PC in a different force has been in court for, he's not been found guilty yet. So let's say allegedly harassing a woman on the street in his own car, driving down the street, following her, and I believe saying sexual remarks to her. This is a serving police officer in his own car, feels so emboldened to sexually harass women on the streets. Our police service is broken at every level, in every way you measure them.
Let's have a look at one example of this and the double standards, one which utterly enraged me at the time. A man drove a car into a crowd in Liverpool during a celebration, during a festival, and immediately we were told his age, his ethnicity, his nationality. Why? Because he was 53, he was white, and he was British. Let's watch this.
The car stopped at the scene and a 53-year-old white British man from the Liverpool area was arrested.
So straight away, we're told 53-year-old white British man was arrested. There's no running away from it. Let's listen to this.
The car stopped at the scene and a 53-year-old white British man from the Liverpool area was arrested. We believe him to be the driver of the vehicle.
Well, there's no ambiguity there, is there, Nick? We're told a white 53-year-old British man was arrested. Would they have said a black 53-year-old Nigerian? I don't think so.
They wouldn't have done, but inadvertently, they now allow us to make that guess, because if a serious criminal is not identified as white and British, then we now know that the criminal is not white and not British. So inadvertently, they now tell us the information we've always known. Now, this is a good case. It's a horrendous case. This was about celebrating Liverpool football's victory or something. This just goes to prove we have enough white British nutcases in this country who need locking up and need dealing with. We have enough of them in this country. We don't need to import foreign nutcases into this country and have to deal with them. We've got our own nutcases.
Yeah, and I haven't really followed the story since then, but it seems fairly obvious he was guilty. But I didn't follow that. What incensed me was the speed at which they raced to tell us the ethnicity of this man. And as you say, if they don't tell us, then you think, oh well, they must be a foreign extraction. Actually, very shortly after that, there was another case which was in Leicester, where they had another car ramming incident. And initially, they didn't actually say anything about the ethnicity of the person. Man charged after pedestrians hit by car. Eventually, probably due to public pressure, including from me, they told us the identity of the man. And yep, sure enough, he wasn't of British ethnicity. But initially, it was just man charged after pedestrians hit by car. And I watched it very closely. It was only, I think, maybe about a week after the Liverpool incident. Total double standards, Nick, because what the police did in Liverpool set a precedent. We now have the right to know the age, the colour, the ethnicity, and the nationality of any crime suspect. And yet, back to Diane Johnson, the police and crime minister, who didn't seem to put the bits together. She hasn't joined the dots. And that's why I think we have two-tier policing in this country, Nick, where the British are to blame, a bit like you're saying in your book as well. But ethnic minorities, legal or otherwise, who come into this country are protected.
Yeah, and let me give you a couple more examples. One happened, I think, about 10 days ago. You may have missed this. It didn't get in the press. It was only on social media. It was a short video clip. I believe it was from Epping, from the Migrant Hotel. The police are protecting and marching the far-left agitators either to the hotel or back to the train station, whatever, march them down the street. And a senior police officer is shouting to his staff, right, you look after the left-hand side, you look after the right-hand side in case the fascists attack us. In case the fascists attack us. You mean the women and children and the decent English men protesting at the Migrant Hotel? When have the police ever been attacked, in the last couple of years? It's like, and you're calling members of the public now fascists. He may have been right saying protect the left-hand side, that might have been a pleasing tactic. But to call people fascists, a serving police officer, was absolutely disgraceful.
Claire Dyer, one of our presenters, she presents Dire Consequences. She, very interestingly, her show was on, in fact, this morning. If you're watching live, you'll find that in the archive. But she highlighted this to me. And do you know what the police's excuse was?
Go on.
They claim, they didn't say fascist, they said in case of flashes. It's just a lie. It's just a lie. Oh, no, we didn't say fascist. We said flashes. And it was obvious fascists. That's what they said. In other words, the people demonstrating against this migrant hotel from which it is alleged sexual assaults have occurred on British minors, British girls. They're fascists for demonstrating. This one gets worse, actually, because not only that, but they've also got, let's just have a look. Let's watch this, because this very well illustrates the rage in that particular community.
More than 100 people gather in Epping outside the Bell Hotel for the 6th time in a fortnight. Police have planned for this, especially given not far away a counter-protest is on its way. Strong feeling on both sides. We start by talking to those protesting about the so-called asylum hotel.
I've come with my grandson today because my daughter lives just down the road there and she's got 6 children that are not safe, but that migrant hotel is still open, as in all these migrants.
They're asylum seekers, though, aren't they? So they're people that seem to be unsafe in their country, may have gone through horrendous stuff, brought here. What do you say to people that say that?
The ones that have come from France have come from a safe country. There ain't no war in France. They could have stayed there. Why have they come here?
Why is it just middle-aged, fighting-age men just being put in hotels, walking around? I never see any women. We want to have kids to be safe. Yeah, I'm a single parent, so yeah, I'll come down here from a father's point of view. It's the movement that's happening. Everyone across the country has had enough.
Some protesting are local and living here, but not all of them.
The people from Great Britain and the people that are really concerned about what's going on, this is our only option.
And where have you come from today?
I've come from Coventry. I'm not there to cause trouble. I'm there to let people know that we are here because we are concerned.
Now, that's interesting, isn't it, Nick? This interviewer, first of all, suggests that these people are all asylum seekers, some legitimate claimant because they suffer. And as the young lad said, they've gone all the way through a whole bunch of countries to come to the UK, which rather blows that argument out of the water.
This is mainstream media. This has been going on for decades and decades. The mainstream media think they're the moral compass of the country. They think what they agree with in their tea room at the water cooler is how the country should think. And they use their media presence, they use their programs and news reporting to try to educate plebs like me and you who don't agree with them. I didn't like the way she said to the guy, "Are you local?" As if it matters. As if she went to the far left protesters, absolutely none of them are local. Absolutely none of them. They're bussed in. but she has to find someone on the other side who isn't local to make that subtle point of, these are far right agitators coming here and they don't really care about the community. It was underhand. It was disgusting. But this is mainstream media. Mainstream media have their own agenda. These poor migrants, these poor people, well, they're not poor migrants and poor people. I'll tell you what they are. They are cowards because they've run away from their countries and they leave their women, their children, their families, their ancestral homeland. They run away like cowards so other people can look after them. They need to get a backbone and grow a pair, stay where they were born, and they need to fix their own countries, just like we spent thousands of years fixing this island into the first world country it is now. Allowing men to run away as cowards, then rewarding them, is not a way to build decent societies.
The point you make was illustrated, and Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform UK, has made a statement about this as well, that while that particular woman from some mainstream outlet was saying, are you local? Are you local? To the people who are objecting to having alleged sexual abusers living in a migrant hotel, illegal asylum seekers. Meanwhile, the police were bussing in and protecting the hard left that were coming in to be involved in this demonstration. What's this?
Look at them, all their balaclavas on.
For doing this, heads must roll. There is no way the Chief Constable or the Police and Crime Commissioner in Essex can stay in their posts. This is a disgrace.
Police have admitted escorting pro-migrant protesters to an asylum hotel before violence erupted last week. Essex Police had initially denied its officers had brought demonstrators from Stand Up to Racism to the Bell Hotel in Epping before clashes with anti-migrant protesters on Sunday, July the 17th. The force changed its tune after being shown footage of the activists being led by officers from a station to outside the hotel while holding placards. Essex Police is due to hold a press conference later today to explain its actions. 6 people have been charged with offences related to the disorder. It comes as the Britannia Hotel in London's Canary Wharf is currently preparing for migrants to arrive. Photos taken today show new beds being unloaded and carried into the hotel. Chaos was sparked outside the Epping Hotel last week after an asylum seeker appeared in court charged with sexually assaulting a 14-year-old girl.
Well, there we go. So the police denied it. But for once, the Sun newspaper seemed to have got it right. And I've seen graphic footage of these counter demonstrators being protected by dozens of police officers, dozens of them, as they were bussed in and walked into the demonstration. How did we get here, Nick?
So my initial response is this is a bit complicated. So one of the police's duties is to ensure law and order on the streets. Do they want a group of far left agitators roaming around and marching through the town by themselves, which then can open them up to be attacked, or them cause violent attacks on someone else? Or do the police march with them to ensure their safety and safety of other people? I get that. What I don't like about those pictures is the fact that nearly all the men in the far left group have all got masks on. When you've got men marching in your town, in your street, with masks on, those men are up to no good. It doesn't matter what their political affiliations are or what they're doing. If you've covered your face, you've covered your face for a reason, and that's because you know you're going to be doing something wrong and you don't want to be identified. The police should be walking up to every one of those and pulling those masks down. The police can do I forgot what the section is now, where if you don't take your mask off, you can be arrested. It only takes an inspector to issue that order, and then all the PCs have the right to do it. And it's same if you had, on the other side of the barriers, if all the people with English flags all had masks on. I don't want them with masks on either. But the police just need to grow a pair. But they're scared. They're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't. And that's always been part of policing. But they just seem to constantly be making the wrong choices. And that's because, as this conversation started, their job isn't what we think their job is anymore now.
My issue here is that they lied. They denied bringing these protesters in. Just blatantly denied it. Now that's a crime as far as I'm concerned. And I think Farage is right. If the chief constable lies to the people he serves, then he isn't fit for that job. The second point you're making is right. Circumstantial evidence tells me those demonstrating against the illegal immigrant hotel wearing masks were challenged with that. But you could see these, what looked to me like hooligans, coming in with their masks on, and the police was supporting them, were helping them. I have to say, it's not surprising to me now that there seems to be an increasing fracture between our police forces and our pathetic government and the general public. I'd be willing to bet that older lady who's with her grandson probably isn't in the habit of demonstrating very often. And I'd be willing to bet that many of the people in Ballymena who got angry didn't demonstrate very often. I'd be willing to bet that lots of people who demonstrated after that horrible, stupid idiot who killed those children in Southport, the people who demonstrated after that weren't in the habit of demonstrating. And so it seems to me, Nick, that we are in a very parlous situation as a country now, because once you demonstrate for the first time, you're more likely to do it again. And in this situation, I grew up in Northern Ireland. Vigilantism was very big over there. And once people get in the habit of it, that's when the state loses control.
Oh, absolutely. And let me tell you how low the police have fallen. Someone like me, all my life, being a huge supporter of the police, 20 years working alongside the police, so many of those years based in police stations, access to police computers, training police officers, set a charity up to work alongside the police to reduce crime and antisocial behaviour on the streets with young people. I am as pro-police as you can get. But now, I look at the police now, and I think the police are our enemy now. The police are not the police I grew up with. The police now are a huge part of the problem. Our police force now are a slightly different version of the Gestapo, of the Stasi, of the Cheka. They're a political enforcement arm of the government. I don't support the police anymore now. And every time I say this out loud, it breaks my heart a little bit, because if I feel like this, someone who's extremely pro-police, have stuck up police all my life, if I feel like this now, that means the police really have fallen.
A word on the government itself. Diana Johnson, who totally underwhelmed me with her interview, seems quite happy to introduce facial recognition cameras. Didn't seem to see why some of us who believe in privacy and freedom of expression and the right to have a private life might be a little bit unhappy about millions of cameras snooping on us.
10 years ago,
can't they see the dangers?
Well, 10 years ago, I'd have told you were wrong. You've got nothing to hide, Lembit. You've got nothing to hide. You're a law-abiding citizen. Don't worry about it. This is all about catching criminals. This technology will be wonderful. Roll on 10 years. Now that we've been through COVID, now that we've seen how authoritarian our state can be, how we can be penalised, how we can be punished. We've seen how the police have fallen so low. And we've seen the establishment, we've seen the civil service embrace woke ideology and all this anti-British rhetoric. And I don't want any more powers to the police or to the states, because the ones they've got now they're abusing. We can't give them any more power. And even if they were running perfectly at the moment, I'm at a stage now where I still want to give them any more powers, because the next government, the next ideology, they'll have all the powers they want to control us. And a really good example of how far they've fallen came out 2 days ago. Police have been advising shopkeepers across the country not to refer online to shoplifters as scumbags. The police now are that worried about shoplifters, and let's be honest, I would say the vast majority of them will not be white British, even though a lot will be white British, the majority won't be. The police are going, you can't refer to a brown black foreigner as a scumbag, even if they're a shoplifter, because in my training course about critical race theory, that's racist, and that's more offensive than the shoplifting crime in the first place. Everything's backwards, Lember. Everything is backwards.
Yeah, I saw that. And once again, Diana Johnson, she said, basically, she was challenged on this, on that interview I saw. And she said, oh, yes, I saw somebody stealing a bunch of flowers. So I went up to the shopkeeper and I drew it to his attention. To which, in fairness to the interviewer, he said, why didn't you make a citizen's arrest? This is interesting. The reality is that we are getting to the point where vigilantism will just happen. It's no surprise to me that the Death Wish series of films with Charles Bronson, where Charles Bronson was a vigilante who took the law into his own hands, were so popular. There's a frustration. That's one reason why the series Taken with Liam Neeson is popular, because he takes it into his own hands. The worry I have now is that once you get down to that kind of anarchistic system of justice, and I remember I did grow up in something like that in Northern Ireland, then bad things come along as well. But the biggest point here in terms of facial recognition cameras and so on, it makes the assumption that the authorities are beyond reproach, and they're not. You've just highlighted the fact that somebody was raping children in the Met. The Met, you know, what was it called? I can't remember the name of the murderer now, but I remember. Yeah, my cousin's killed Everard, murdered a police officer, murdered someone, and there are so many cases of things like this, and that's the problem. We're not giving the information to saints. We're giving the information to a corrupt regime, which is repeatedly found guilty of corruption. And of course, where Sadiq Khan, who's technically responsible for the police, doesn't seem to be aware of it. He doesn't seem to be aware of the fact that the buck stops with him. So we live in a dark time.
Let me give you a future example of these facial recognition cameras. Right, we've got them. They're in our high streets. Someone has just been given a non-crime hate incident for something they said on the internet. And to get a non-crime hate incident, you don't even have to be told you've got one. But now we've got facial recognition cameras. There's a new policy in all the police forces that if you've not been told you've got a non-crime hate incident or you've got one last year, the police now are going to stop you and let you know that you're being watched and you have got a non-crime hate incident. So that means when you're walking down the street, the police then can recognize you with a camera, stop you going about your daily business, just to have a quiet word that we've already noted something on your record, mate, about something you said on the internet. You didn't break the law, but now I have the right to stop you and let you know what. That's where this goes to. So we need to be extremely careful.
That makes people hate the police.
Yes.
That's what happens. Ordinary people will start hating the police. Let's add it all together before we finish. We've got hundreds of asylum hotels where illegal immigrants whose first act was to break the law when they set foot on British soil are being housed in far better conditions than many British citizens who simply can't afford to make ends meet. We've got crimes being perpetrated by some of these illegal migrants. We've got the demonstrators against this being harassed by the police, and we've got the counter-demonstrators being helped by the police, and we've got the police lying about that. And then when someone drives their car into a crowd, we're told he's white, he's 53, he's British. But when the same thing happens in Leicester, it's like pulling teeth to get the information from the mainstream media and from the police. Not looking too good, is it, Nick?
It isn't. And the ironic part of all this is it doesn't have to be this way. We've got many problems in our country, and many of them will take decades to solve, and it'll take some very clever people to figure out how we solve them. Because we have got some serious problems. This isn't one of them. All we need to do is one piece of legislation in Parliament, and then we can deport or get rid of these people the next day and stop anybody else from coming. We just need to repeal the human rights laws that have been put into the British statute. And then this problem goes away. It goes away immediately. But to do that, we require people with a backbone, politicians with a backbone to do it. And we ain't got any.
Last chance to plug your book, Anglophobia.
Nope.
You've got one. Here's one you prepared earlier. Twice worth paying to be English.
Yeah,
it looks good.
It's got a new cover now. So a friend of mine did a professional cover on it. That was just the best I could do. It explains why we're in this mess. It explains why we're hated. It explains why we have this anti-white narrative, this anti-English narrative, why the British Empire was evil when it turns out to be the most benevolent empire that ever was. It voluntarily ended itself without a shot being fired, really. I mean, you compare it to the French Empire, the Belgian Empire, the Ottoman Empire. We look at what this country achieved. We ended slavery. We created the Industrial Revolution. We gave the world our language, all our sports. If it wasn't for this island, the world would be a much poorer place and a much less beautiful, amazing planet. The book ends by saying the world owes the English and the British a thank you. That's all I want to hear from foreigners, is a big thank you.
Nicely put. Thank you. I'll give you a thank you. Thank you for being on the show. That's Nick Buckley, MBE. Get that book. I'm certainly going to be reading it.